Having now won the election, Donald Trump is returning to his pre-election habit of hosting regular and disturbing press conferences in which he says things that are both wildly dishonest and incredibly dangerous. But before we unpack all that, if you end up liking this video and you want to support the channel, please be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and alert bells before you go. All right, friends, we have several clips to talk about from Donald Trump's most recent press conference in Palm Beach, Florida. Now, some of the things he said there are so salacious and so disturbing that they merit their own video, and so we're going to talk about some of these things in a separate video, okay? You're not going to see everything. But I do want to give you a general overview of the unhinged things that Donald Trump had to say during this press conference. And remember, he's not the president. He's the president-elect. He has not been inaugurated. So if this is a sample of what's to come for the rest of this country, we are in some deep shit. So we're going to start with this clip here in which Donald Trump seems to double down on his threats to impose sweeping tariffs on two of our three biggest trading partners, Mexico and Canada.
Some of their jails are empty, and they will be empty soon if this ever continued. I spoke with the president of Mexico, and as you know, I spoke with Justin Trudeau of Canada, and we told them it's not fair, not right. You can't let these people come into our country. And they understand. They're very much on notice, and they're going to have to stop this from happening. They're going to have to stop it. We lose a lot of money to Mexico. We lose a lot of money to Canada, tremendous amount. We're subsidizing Canada. We're subsidizing Mexico. That can't go on. And I get along with the people of Mexico and Canada very well, but we can't let that happen.
Donald Trump was the one who negotiated the deal he's now complaining about. Donald Trump didn't inherit, this asymmetrical, lopsided deal that he's talking about from President Obama or President Bush or President Clinton. It was Donald Trump who went back to the drawing board and renegotiated the trade agreement between the United States, Mexico, and Canada. So if everything he's saying about the trade dynamic is true, that's because of his trade agreement, not President Biden's, his. Of course, you're not going to hear that from him, and you won't hear it from Fox News or other right-wing media. So which is it? Is this happening because of the Biden administration? And so you're using this as an opportunity to try, take a shot at the Democrats and say, oh, no, they've made a mess that I have to clean up? Or are you conceding that you actually cut a disastrous deal that you now regret and you have to renegotiate? In which case, why would we trust you to do that when you were the one who created the so-called disastrous dynamic in the first place? But we live in a post-fact, post-truth world, so it doesn't matter. Donald Trump can say whatever the hell he wants. Sky is green, down is up is down. And unfortunately, nearly 50% of the country just takes it at face value. Ridiculous.
Why are we supporting and giving other countries hundreds of billions of dollars? It's not fair. It's not right. And the people of Mexico and Canada fully understand that. We've talked about it before, but now we're doing something about it. We started, and then we had to fix the COVID situation.
The COVID situation, which happened on your watch and you mismanaged and it wasn't fixed. And listen, I've got other clips to play, so I don't want to relitigate, what we've discussed in multiple videos, which would be the, predictable, disastrous consequences for the American people. Not just elites, not just people in blue cities, blue states, not Democrats, but everybody, including red cities, red states, red counties, conservative voters. It will hit your pocketbook as well. If Donald Trump imposes sweeping universal tariffs at 25%, on every imported good from Mexico and Canada, two of our three biggest trading partners, and an additional 10% tariff on China. Again, that's the top three. Mexico, Canada, China, our top three biggest trading partners. That would trigger a disastrous trade war in which the American consumer would see their prices increase, staggeringly so, on every U.S. import. So, really stupid stuff from Donald Trump, but again, this is where we are. Then the stupidity continues because he suggested that, in 2020, his last year in office, and when he left office in January of 2021, he actually left President Biden in a pretty good situation in which there were no real problems.
Like out of nowhere came the China virus. Out of nowhere came other things we don't want to have. When I left, we had no wars. We had no problems. The Middle East was good. We did the Abraham Accords. We did things that nobody thought were even possible.
Just want to interrupt here again. There were still wars in the Middle East. There were still wars in which the United States, at least diplomatically, was involved. Drone strikes against, foreign interests, against foreign enemies increase substantially under the Trump administration than compared to even the Obama administration. President Biden was the one who cut it in half. We were still technically occupying Afghanistan because Trump, though he promised to get us out of Afghanistan and had 4 years to give the order, Never actually did. He cut a disastrous deal with the Taliban called the Doha Agreement, which set the United States really on a back foot, gave the Taliban everything they wanted. Trump didn't enforce the terms of the deal, so the Taliban got every good faith commitment from Trump, but weren't held to the same standard. And then he kicked the can down the road for President Biden to actually do the hard work, which is to get people out of Afghanistan. We're actually in one fewer war under President Biden than we were under Donald Trump, because that war in Afghanistan was still in effect because we were still in Afghanistan. But he just says this shit. He just says this shit, and he's not meaningfully fact-checked. I mean, he assassinated a top Iranian general, which potentially risked not only conflict directly with Iran, but also potentially created issues in the Middle East. And this idea that Trump must not have done anything to contribute to any sort of issue in the Middle East simply because it didn't happen on his watch. Well, this shit takes time. This stuff takes time. There's a good argument to be made that by moving the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that contributed to the situation that we now see between Israel and Gaza, or Israel and Hamas. But again, Trump just says this shit and people let him get away with it. We'll continue.
But think of it, 4 years ago, we had no wars. You didn't have Russia going into Ukraine. They wouldn't have done it. They weren't even thinking about it.
There's no evidence that they weren't thinking about it and evidence that they were. I mean, again, this is, John Bolton, who was Donald Trump's own appointed national security advisor, he had been making the rounds for years debunking this notion that Trump somehow had Putin hemmed in and that Putin was somehow, not going to do whatever the hell Putin wanted to do. I mean, think about it. We know that Putin preferred Trump. We know that Trump talks about the relationship he has with Putin, that he and Putin have a great working dynamic, right? So both of these men clearly prefer to deal with the other based on their public sentiment. Well, if that's the case, how could it be that Putin would prefer Trump to be president because they have such a great working relationship, and also that he wouldn't invade Ukraine if that's what he wanted to do? Like, if he wanted to invade Ukraine, then one assumes he would not have wanted Trump to be president, and they would actually have a disastrous relationship, right? But if he wants to invade Ukraine and he wants Trump to be president, then it naturally follows that he must not think that Trump would have been a meaningful obstacle to a future invasion of Ukraine. And these military buildups take time. Maybe he thought that Trump in a second term would do more to weaken NATO. But again, it's so funny. Yeah, Trump and Putin, hell yeah, they have a great professional working relationship. They respect one another. They know how to work with one another. And also, Trump would have somehow prevented Putin from doing the thing Putin wanted to do, but Putin wanted Trump to be president and therefore in a position to stop Putin from doing the things that Putin wanted to do. Make it make sense. It doesn't make any sense.
When they saw what happened in Afghanistan, I think they gave them an idea, but they wouldn't have done it. They would have never gone. President Putin would have never gone in. And now you look at all those people are dead. All those cities are destroyed. It's nice to say they want their land back, but the cities are largely destroyed. They've left Kiev because maybe they want to use it or occupy it, but they haven't done it. They've done a lot of damage, but relative.
And again, so funny to hear him say it was because of Afghanistan. You set up a disastrous situation, Donald, in Afghanistan. You retrograded U.S. forces. You reduced U.S. manpower. You gave the Taliban everything they wanted. And you cut down U.S. resources to deal with it. And then you left Biden to hold the bag. Absolute disaster. It's so funny. Yep, he did everything perfectly. Biden did everything disastrously. Why didn't Trump do it? Trump's so damn good and he's such a peacemaker. Why didn't, in the 4 years he was president, actually get us out of Afghanistan? Was he too weak? Was he too easily manipulated? Was he a liar? There's no explanation which is actually plausible or good for Donald Trump, or plausibly good. It seems like no matter what the explanation is, well, his generals overruled him. Okay, so he's a wimp. So he's a loser. So he actually got out-muscled by people who report to him, who answer to him. His subordinates bossed him around. Well, that makes Trump weak. No, they didn't boss him around, Josiah. No, you don't understand. They deceived him. They manipulated him. Oh, so he's an idiot who can be manipulated and outfoxed by subordinates who work for him. He just doesn't know what the hell he's doing. So he's stupid or foolish. No, not like that. He couldn't get it done. Couldn't get it done, even though he campaigned on doing, kind of like grocery prices. How he said during the campaign in 2024 that he will cut Grocery prices. You're going to see it immediately. Your grocery prices are going to fall. Your energy prices are going to be cut in half. Okay, well, and then after the election, he'll say, well, I mean, I can't guarantee that. It's really hard to get stuff down. We know, Donald. Everybody knew that. Well, shouldn't say everybody. Fortunately, too many people thought that the president could simply snap his fingers, be it Biden, Trump, or Harris, and make high prices go down. And you led your supporters to believe that. You led the American people to believe that, which is why you demanded their votes. But now you're conceding you don't have that power, so you're a liar. You lied when you said you were going to get us out of Afghanistan. You had 4 years and you never did it. You just kicked the can down the road the same way that Bush did, the same way that Obama did. So you're a liar. You're either weak, an idiot, or a liar, right? Those are the only plausible explanations. And yet his followers are like, no. There's probably like a fourth explanation, which is like really good for Trump because he's like perfect and a genius and nobody can bully him. Nobody can manipulate him. Stop it. You're hurting my feelings. This is where we are with Trump cope. That's the real Trump derangement syndrome. This idea that Trump, can do no wrong, that he can't be weak, that he can't be easily manipulated, that he can't lie, when in fact all of these things are true. I digress. Here's another clip.
Next month?
Who?
How do you plan to stop the ban on TikTok next month?
We'll take a look at TikTok. I have a warm spot in my heart for TikTok because I won youth by 34 points. And there are those that say that TikTok had something to do with that. Now, Joe Rogan did, and some of the other people that were recommended by my son Barron, he knew names. I said, who is that? Tell me, who's that? Dad, you got to be kidding. I can't believe you don't know. And I did those interviews, and it was actually sort of cute, if you want to know the truth. But we did them, and that had an impact. But TikTok had an impact, and so we're taking a look at.
I love it. Trump used to want a ban on TikTok. That is a matter of public record. He was supportive of a ban on TikTok. And then the TikTok upper elite, the C-suite of TikTok supported the Trump campaign, and you hear it right now. Well, TikTok was good for me. Now I have a soft spot for them in my heart, a warm spot, a warm soft spot. So he flip-flops his freaking position based on who happens to give him support in the short term. Absolutely no principles whatsoever, no consistent ideology, and not even in the sense of, I have my personal beef with TikTok, but you know what? They did something really good for the American people, and despite my personal grievance, I might have to revisit a TikTok ban. No. It's not even that sort of flexibility. The flexibility is what do other people do for Donald Trump, the person? Not even Trump supporters, not for the American people, just for this man himself. That's how transactional, that's how cynically, despicably transactional he is. You have to do something special for him, not even his supporters. He doesn't give a damn about them. What Donald Trump supports is based entirely on what benefits him as a person, not as a brand, not as a father, not as a political leader, not as a party leader, him personally. Everyone else be damned. And the fascinating thing is he was never really good at bullshitting about it. Now he's just out in the open. He's like, yeah, I support TikTok because they supported me personally in an election year. So yeah, we're going to have to take a look at that. Shameless. Imagine if President Biden had said something similar. Imagine if President Biden had said something about that in pre-Elon Musk Twitter. Think about it. MAGA Republicans believe that pre-Elon Musk Twitter helped get Joe Biden elected. They helped rig the 2020 election against God Emperor Trump. And so then imagine they believe that. And then President Biden in let's say December 16th, because that's the time of recording, December 16th, 2024. Imagine President Biden, December 16th, 2020, after winning the election, says, you know what, we're going to have to look at helping Twitter out. Because I think Twitter helped me out. I think Twitter, by suppressing the Hunter Biden laptop story, I think that they helped me out. Some would say that helped me out during the election. So we really have to look at doing them a favor. Imagine how Trump and MAGA Republicans would have freaked the hell out, and rightly so, because that would have been hella corrupt. Joe Biden didn't do that. Donald Trump is doing that. Objectively, infinitely more corrupt than Joe Biden on his worst day. And they do not care. Trump does not care. MAGA Republican officials don't care. And quite frankly, MAGA Republican voters who watch this don't give a damn. Shamelessness is the superpower. It's all about winning. Another clip, an unhinged, this is where it gets really, really, really dangerous for the American people and their future, because the topic turns to vaccines.
Can I ask, just clearly, do you believe there's a connection between vaccines and autism? Do you believe there's a link?
Well, I don't look. Right now, you have some very brilliant people looking at it. I had dinner the other night with the head of Pfizer, the head of Eli Lilly, and RFK, as you know, and Oz. And we had, and other people within the administration that are involved in the medical. And we're looking to find out, if you look at autism.
So there, Trump, in his alliance with anti-vaxxer RFK Jr., sorry, my dog down there just happened to be near my feet. Sorry, buddy. RFK Jr. is a well-known anti-vaxxer and conspiracy theorist, and Trump has made this unholy alliance, and likewise, RFK Jr. made the unholy alliance with Trump for mutual benefit. And now, Trump is, I should say now, but it's actually not the first time, but Trump is continuing to breathe life into a debunked conspiracy theory that vaccines have triggered autism, that autism, or the increased rates of autism, or the prevalence of autism, is medically attributed vaccines. There's no evidence for it. There's no evidence. This is a debunked conspiracy theory. And Trump is signal boosting it. Trump's saying, well, we're looking, a lot of brilliant people are looking into it. A lot of brilliant people have looked into it. And the evidence is clear. There is no connection. There is no connection between autism and vaccines based on all the evidence examined. And what this will do is increase anti-vax sentiment, which already exploded on Donald Trump's watch because of COVID. It was bad enough. Now it's spreading elsewhere into other vaccines. As a matter of fact, one of RFK Jr.'s lawyers has requested that the FDA pull its authorization from polio vaccines. Polio, a disease that we effectively eradicated decades ago. And it may be back on the rise because of this shit. This is what Donald Trump, RFK Jr., and his cabal want to do with the federal government. This is what I mean. This is dangerous. Measles, polio, other issues, like people could not only suffer but die as a consequence of this. People have suffered and died as a consequence of anti-vax sentiment. We have studies which prove this, that red counties were more likely to suffer and die from COVID because they were less likely to get the vaccine, the COVID vaccine, compared to blue counties. Republicans and Trump supporters died at a disproportionate rate on a purely political vector because they were less likely to get the COVID vaccine. And that's tragic. I've got family members and friends who are Trump supporters. Most of them, not all, most of them are vaccinated. But they could have made a different decision. Their political cohort was much more likely to make a different decision, a disastrous decision. There are people who should be alive today, Republicans who should be alive today, but they aren't, in part because they chose not to get a vaccine, which is safe and effective, far more safe and effective than duking it out with COVID. People say, well, myocarditis. You're more likely to suffer from myocarditis from getting COVID than from the COVID vaccine. And now it's not just COVID. Now they're actually increasing skepticism and blowing up skepticism for things like measles and polio. Shit that we had under wraps. Shit that was settled science. The COVID vaccines are effectively settled science, but measles and polio, they've been settled science for decades. The last clip I want to play is Trump being asked about former Fox News host and current Defense Secretary nominee, the scandal-riddled Pete Hegseth. This is what Trump had to say.
And Pete Hegseth gave up a lot because he was going big places in Fox, big places, a lot of money. And he didn't even hesitate. When I said, do you want to do this? He said, absolutely. I said, if it doesn't work out, you'll never have the opportunity that you have right now in terms of the world of entertainment or business, whatever you want to call it. You'll never have that opportunity again. In fact, it could be just the opposite, because it's nasty out there. He said, I don't care, I have to do it for my country. He gave up a tremendous amount. If this didn't work, it would be a tragedy. Because, but that's what he loves. He loves the military. I never talked to him about anything else. He'd talk about the military. He'd come to see me.
This is, okay. So Pete Hegseth, again, let's just recap. One of Trump's most controversial nominees. Yes, he served in the military. Yes, he was a decorated combat veteran. But so is the current Democratic-appointed, Biden-appointed Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin. And Republicans hate his guts. Clearly, combat experience isn't what you're looking for. And Pete Hegseth doesn't have the administrative experience. He never had a leadership position in the military. He didn't command a battalion. He didn't command an army. He has no meaningfully operational, administrative, or command experience. And Trump is saying, hey, actually, let's skip all of that and let's make you the day-to-day leader of the Defense Department, the most powerful military force in the history of civilization, comprised of 3 million people, $20 billion budget, annual budget, and you have no experience. As a matter of fact, when you have run things like Concerned Veterans for America, you are ousted in disgrace. There is credible reporting to indicate it was a shit show under your tenure, and that's an organization with a fraction of the manpower and budget as the DoD. And recently, what you've been doing is be a propaganda piece. You've been the second string Fox News weekend host. It's Fox and Friends weekend, not even Fox and Friends. Wildly unqualified. Been credibly accused of sexual misconduct. Not been proven. Pete Hegseth denies it. He's been credibly accused. And Trump's rationale for this is, listen, he loves the military. He gave up a lucrative job at Fox News to come serve us. Okay, well, I don't know in what universe it would be seen as a demotion or a sacrifice to give up Fox and Friends weekend to become the, again, de facto day-to-day leader of the most powerful military force on earth. I imagine most people, even if they didn't take the job, presumably because they wouldn't want the stress associated with it, would be like, weekend Fox host, Secretary of Defense. Secretary of Defense is a lot more prestigious and a lot more powerful. And the best part about being Secretary of Defense is once your time is up, you can go back to Fox. And Fox will be like, damn, do we want to hire not only a guy who was a former Fox host, but for 4 years led the most powerful military force on earth, a defense secretary? As far as I'm aware, there is no one that high ranked in the federal government who then went to work for Fox News. You have former press secretaries like Haley McEnany and Dana Perino working at Fox, but you never had the leader of the most powerful military force in the history of civilization who then became a Fox News host. This idea that he really, he shot his career in the foot. That's how much he loves his country. No, that's bullshit. Like anybody else, once he leaves the military, I imagine even more doors would open for him as a consequence, and Fox would be willing to pay him a hell of a lot more to put that particular feather in their cap. So, just total nonsense, but it goes to show how Trump's brain works. He gave up a gig in show business to become to lead the most powerful military force on earth. He went from here to here. Really? Is that how you look at this job? Is that what's that imply about how you look at the relativism between the entertainment industry and the military? You think the military is slumming it in comparison? I don't know. This is just a snapshot into how his brain works, and he's putting it out there on for all to see. Yeah, there are other things that we got to talk about in other videos, but I just want to give you a snapshot. He said so many weird, dishonest, unhinged things in this conversation, and it's an ill omen of what's to come. In the meantime, let me know what you think in the comments.